You are listening to the Parkflyer podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Parkflyer podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Parkflyer podcast. I'm Michael from Arizona, and with me always are my good friends,
Jay from the hills of Texas.
And AK Mike in Texas.
and welcome to the Parkflyer podcast. This is the first one of 2021 because 2020 kind of caught us.
Ended in a bang, or more of a whimper, or a boo.
With the short hairs.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll tell you what, if I have to do it all over again, I would never want to relive 2020. Trust me. But before we get started, let's get right to our sponsors.
"3D Aeroventures, adding fun to the RC hobby, one layer at a time."
Feeling weak and powerless? Sounds to me like you need A-Power batteries. When someone needs the best, they always choose the A-Team. A-Power batteries. Get on the web and get yours today.
Well, welcome back to the Parkflyer podcast. Yeah, man, I tell you what, for those of you that listen to us on a regular basis, you probably realize that we didn't have a December, or, this is late in January, but that was mainly due to me. And if you're watching,
you had to buy those.
Guess why?
Those bargain basement seals, those silicone seals for your bunker. I told you not to get those. I said get good seals, man. Pay the money. Get real rubber. Don't get that fake silicone
Also use the
stuff.
KY jelly.
Yeah.
That's right. But
Or not.
No,
I mean, can't remember if it dissolves it. I can't remember. But
They had them on
Something
sale at TG&Y for $1. What can I say?
TG&Y, wow.
And therefore, it wasn't as hermetically sealed as you thought it was. And what
Yes.
happened? The COVIDs got in.
They got me. Yep.
It
Unfortunately.
did.
Yeah.
And once again, being an overachiever like you are, you just can't get COVID. Okay, I'm good.
Nope.
2 days later,
No.
and I'm back running around, no sweat. No, you go, man. I need something that would probably lay everybody out. I need to go get the super special COVIDs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go somewhere foreign and exotic and get something that hasn't been seen or by some strange African monkey by way of Korea.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Well, lucky it wasn't some African monkey, but it was. I had gone on a trip, and on the way back from South Korea, I was exposed, and I didn't really think anything of it. My symptoms didn't really manifest themselves for quite almost 7 days. It was probably about 5 days. 5 days into it, and unfortunately, it wasn't a whole lot. I mean, I know the list of symptoms for COVID is very long. There's 2 columns of stuff that can happen. You can lose your taste and your smell, and you can your head will screw around backwards or whatever it is. But that didn't happen to me. I got the chills, and I was feeling kind of just run down, and I didn't really think anything of it. But company notified me that I'd been exposed, and suggested I go get tested. But it had been over 7 days, so I was like, I'm probably good. Went to one of these little, rapid testing places that my wife is like, well, if you got exposed, you should go, get tested. And so 30 minutes later, they test me, and then they say, okay, we'll wait in your car and we'll call you.
Congratulations.
That's about what it was. Guy came in there and he goes, so tell me a little bit about this exposure. And I kind of went through it, and he goes, well, yep, you are correct. You have it. And I still felt great. I was just like, okay, well, I'll suck it up. I'll quarantine myself. And so about a couple of days later, they gave me some medicine, just kind of like an inhaler.
I think it was about 3 days, about 2 or 3 days later.
2 or 3 days later, yeah.
Yep.
I woke up, I took a shower, and I told first of all, let me go back, because if you do not own a pulse oximeter, which basically looks like this little unit, you turn it on, you stick your finger in there, and it's got a case on it. Let me take the case off. You put your finger in there, and then, a couple seconds later, it will tell you what your blood oxygen level is. And in my particular case, it's, like 95, and then my pulse is at 100, which is normal for recovering COVID. But anyway, I had seen one of the other guys at work who wrote a little article and said, for $18 you can get this. You should really get it. And so I did. And I checked myself a couple of times, and I bought one for my bag, so I have two. I carry one in my bag so if I'm up in the air, I can be like, that's cool. Anyway, my wife, she was using it because she had been exposed like a week earlier, but had never shown any symptoms. And I woke up about 3 days later after, I got the test on a Sunday, and this was about Wednesday, Tuesday night or Wednesday night. And I got up and I showered, and I felt really tired. I just felt tired. And so anyway, I got out of the shower, finished drying off. I literally walked over. My clothes are laying on the bed. And rather than get dressed, I just fell face first into bed. I mean, I just was like, I just want to sleep like 15 minutes. And I fell into bed. 6 o'clock that evening, my wife comes in, she's like, are you still sleeping? Because she had been at work the whole time. She works at home, but she'd been in her office, and I think she'd come in at lunch to check on me and just said, he's tired. I'll let him sleep. So at 6 o'clock that night, she's like, this is very unusual. My husband is up. Normally I'm up at like 6 a.m. every morning, and I go to bed sometime around 11 o'clock. So I don't sleep a whole lot. And she's like, for him to sleep all day, it must be kind of weird. So she grabbed the pulse oximeter and shoved it on my finger, and she kind of stood there looking at the numbers going, well, this doesn't sound right,
Negative numbers. That's not
good. The numbers were apart, but they were the wrong numbers in the wrong direction. My oxygen levels were this way low, and my heart rate was this way too high. And so she has a friend of hers that's a nurse and a emergency room nurse. And so she called her and said, hey, my husband's laying here. He's been sleeping all day. And, I got this thing on his finger, and it's showing oxygen in the 70s and pulse rate up in the 150s or 60s or whatever it was. What should I do? And the lady was really sweet. She goes, well, I don't want to alarm you, but he needs to be in the hospital right now. So she kind of shook me awake and half drugged me out, under the shoulder kind of thing to the car. And I was just like, whoa, whatever. And then they got to the emergency room. They wheeled me in, and she parked, kind of in like a hotel. You get them out. She's at the front door, and she lets me out. The lady's standing there talking to me. She goes, okay, I'm going to go park the car. So she whips the car into a parking space, comes back in, and I'm nowhere to be seen. They had wheeled me away. Well, they only wheeled me over to this location where COVID patients were. So I was still kind of like in the lobby. If my wife had seen, kind of that room over there, because it was a separate room, and she didn't know they wheeled me in that room. So I was still down there. So she goes, where did my husband go? They go, oh, we took him. He's already in. We checked him in. So he's gone. And
never to be seen again.
Yeah, pretty much. So she's kind of like freaked out because she's like, well, I didn't even get to say goodbye or nothing. And so she goes back out to the car. She's texting me, Of course, I'm like half asleep. So I'm like, oh, I'm here, And so about 2 hours in they did a chest x-ray and some other stuff. And about 2 hours in the emergency room, the guy comes by, and this lady comes in and, lights, and she comes in. She goes, okay, buddy, here we go. We're going to go for a ride. And I'm like, oh, great. Another test or, CT scan or something like that. Nope. Straight up to the COVID ward. And they wheeled me in a room, and 16 days later, I finally got out. So it was pretty rough.
Wait, and once again, the one benefit, of course, was you looked like so svelte, and like you look gorgeous. I mean, gee whiz. So 16 days later, and what, 26 pounds?
23 pounds.
Whew, man. That's a
as a matter of fact, when I finally came out, as I walked out of the hospital, even my wife was like, "Oh my gosh," because she hadn't seen me. So that was the rough part. And the first 5 days I was on, and if you're listening, I was critical. I was, matter of fact, the doctor came in and asked if I wanted on a ventilator. And I said, I don't want to go on a ventilator because I've heard horror stories about that. If all possible, I'm staying off the ventilator. So whatever I need to do, no ventilator. And he's like, no ventilator? And I said, no. So he called my wife. Well, this is day 5, I guess, or 4 or 5. And she hasn't heard from me at all because I can't talk. I've got this big, monstrosity thing on my face. And anyway, the doctor called her and he said, hey, just want to let you know, I talked to Michael and he said, basically he doesn't want to go on a ventilator. And she goes, okay, yeah, we want to stay off the ventilator if at all possible. He goes, well, then we need to make arrangements.
So did they take that as like, do not resuscitate?
Right.
Basically what they were taking that
exactly.
as?
That's why he called.
Okay, gotcha.
Because he said, if he does not want to agree to go on a ventilator, we cannot do anything for him any longer. So therefore, you need to make arrangements. Well, she goes, okay, well, what kind of arrangements? He goes, funeral arrangements. And I kind of laugh at that now. It's not funny, but here's my wife who hasn't heard from me at all, and now the doctor who's taking care of me just basically told her to start making funeral arrangements. And so, she kind of started freaking out, and I didn't understand that. So when the doctor came back in, he kind of explained to me. He said, I spoke to your wife, and I told her if you weren't going to go on a ventilator, she needed to make arrangements for you. And then I went, whoa, okay, all right, wait, time out, honestly, I said, look,
let's rephrase this.
Right, rephrase it. Could you be a little more?
I think we need to rephrase this as something else, Doc. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I was saying like just walking in here, not to just slap me on a ventilator because you got all these extra ones on the wall.
Right. Well,
if I'm gonna die, go ahead and give it a shot. Okay.
Right. And that's eventually what I told them. I was like, oh well, and you got to understand, it was very difficult to communicate because I had. They were force feeding me oxygen at the time, and I was on a BiPAP machine. I think if you're familiar with the sleep apnea thing, that's called a CPAP, right? I don't really know what the difference is, other than the fact that this one was blowing 100% oxygen, in my lungs. I mean, the thing came off, the little nozzle came off and was whipping around the room like a freaking, fire hose. It was like going everywhere. And I'm over there in the dark, I'm trying to grab it because it's like, 4:00 in the morning. I'm trying to screw it back on, and the alarms are going off, because my oxygen levels dropped so fast. And so they came back in. But, having that on, it was difficult to communicate with the doctor because as I'm talking, I have to talk through this whole machine. And I told him, I said, look, I'm a fighter. If this is a matter of life and death, which it was, I said, if it comes down to it and I don't respond to this BiPAP machine, basically you are allowed to put me on a ventilator. But I just have heard so many horror stories. So if I can do anything to keep me off a ventilator, just let me know. And about that time, the respiratory therapist who was there said, well, you need to sleep prone, which means on your stomach. Well, if anybody has any type of beer belly, they know that's a very difficult thing to do. And, at the time, I still had a little food stored up. My winter coat was still on. And, it was difficult to sleep on your stomach, especially with this big, thing on your face. And, but I, he told me, he said, look, I will tell you that most people have recovered quicker if they sleep prone on their stomach. The guys that are not doing it and are fighting it, they wind up in ICU. And I was like, okay, that's all you had to tell me. And so for, those 5 days, I was literally flat out on my stomach, sleeping, flat. But, that after a week, they put me on remdesivir and dexamethasone, which is a steroid. I was on the remdesivir for 5 days. And on the 5th day, they came in there basically, or 6th day, I guess. It was 5 days. 5 days and then the next day I didn't get it. But they said, we got good news. It was probably about 2 a.m. Respiratory therapist came in and nudges me and he goes, hey buddy, I got some good news for you. I've turned your O2 levels down, and that's a good start. So I was pretty happy at that point. I dodged the bullet to go, up or down, take that elevator to wherever I'm going. And then, I dodged the ventilator as well. So I'm glad it worked out. It wasn't so with other people on my floor. I think that night they had about 4 other people that went to ICU. So I felt really lucky. My wife had created a Facebook page for me, on personal side, and a lot of people reached out, and I got put on a lot of prayer rolls and a lot of prayers thrown my way, and a lot of good support from hundreds of people that reached out. And then I felt really bad because there were people that had no idea, that I affiliate myself with, and either in the airline world or the aerobatic world or RC world, and they had no idea because it happened so fast, and it wasn't like I was communicating with anybody. I couldn't talk on the phone or any of that stuff. So, but it was touch and go for a little bit, and I am thankful to everyone and everything and the man above for bringing me out of this. So
my feelings were hurt for a little bit because you weren't communicating with anybody.
Yeah,
and I thought, I took it really personally. And, it's like, wow, Mike doesn't even call me anymore. It's like, what happened? Well, he never called me before, but even now he's not calling me. It's like, wow, this is really bad.
Jeez, I usually get one phone call.
At least.
I know, right? Well, I need to take this forum, and I know we've kind of chatted a little bit about it. And, if you have questions or whatever, feel free to email me. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. But I have to publicly thank Jay, because right after I went in, we were in the process of packing up the house and selling the home because we're building a new one. And Jay jumped on an airplane, came out, and, helped my wife pack up the house. He directed everything. And I never got to see him. And I think I only talked to you maybe once or twice right as I was getting towards the end of this thing. And then you were actually gone back at home by the time they released me. So, but I personally have to thank Jay. He did a tremendous job, and I know he didn't have to come out, but he did. He was pretty quick.
I mean, I sure was going to do it because you weren't calling me. So I was like, there's no way I'm going there.
In fact, I called Mike up and say, hey, man, you want to come out there with me? He goes,
I mean, I know that sounds petty and everything, but that's just the way I am.
So I got to thank Jay for helping me pack up everything. I got to thank Mike for not coming out here and kicking my butt, for not communicating. There you go.
Well, buddy, it's okay. I was happy to do it, and it all worked out. But I mean, it was like I said, this guy's got this personality. You just can't do things, nice and simple. He has to do it 100%. The hardest way you can do it.
Yeah,
always has to be a challenge.
Yeah.
And it was a challenge to pack up all your crap and get you moved out before the repossessors are coming.
Well, I think what our listeners are asking in their own minds is, what are you going to do when it comes time to move into your new house?
I know, right?
For some kind of thing, you can't do COVID again.
No,
that's already blown.
I got to come up with something,
What do you? I guess you could do emphysema because you got the nose thing already, so you're good there.
So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that I'm wearing an oxygen cannula. I'm still on O2. If you're listening, you won't see it, but I am wearing. I am on a small dose of oxygen when I'm in the house. I have to wear it.
I do have to say, Mike, out of all my friends, this was the biggest thing that somebody's done to get out of some work.
I know, right? Everybody mentioned
to pack up his house. I mean, I've heard of all sorts of excuses, and I got to fly here. This is going on. My mom died, but this one.
Well,
I'm in the hospital.
My wife
can you come out, pack up my house.
My wife.
He knew the dog ate the homework wasn't going to work, right? I mean, that was pretty obvious that wasn't going to work.
No, actually, my wife told me tonight. She said, when we move into the new house, you better not be on a trip, or we are getting divorced.
Yeah, and I'm also sure that she doesn't want me to come out there and help. Again.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta give her credit, though. I mean, she was under an incredible
without a doubt,
she
dude.
really
I mean,
was.
come on,
and I
everything that's going on. Like I said. Oh yeah, your by the way, your husband may die. Oh, and by the way, you got to have your house packed up and be out by Monday. And by the way, this is going on with your new house.
Right.
Did you want insulation in that? Okay, whatever. I mean, all that stuff was all happening at once. So
and work, and she was still trying. I mean, she had got off of work because of that, but work was like, hey, what's going on? What happened? They were really nice.
That was the part that was when she told me that I was like, what do you mean you're still working? What? Yeah. You're still working? You're at work? Aren't you on vacation or on leave or something?
Right.
That was crazy.
That was kind of
But hey, I know what I wanted to tell you. So you remember you before you got sick and you'd come home from Korea and you told me you got sick.
I like how he does the quotes. Remember before you got sick. Yeah.
So you remember how you said that you'd gotten a massage?
Yes.
When you were in Korea, right?
I did. Well,
okay.
I got a massage when I was in South America, in Santa Paula.
South America. It was South America, but that's right, South America. And you said that, man, that was the lady really, I was really, really sore and it hurt.
Yes.
Remember how you said that it hurt a lot?
Yep.
Okay, I was watching the Hodgkin twins.
Yeah.
Two guys. Yeah. So I was watching those guys, and they were talking about they both got COVID, right?
Oh, okay.
And one of the things they talked about was the lack of a fever, getting a fever, type of thing, flu type symptoms. And that it was really, really painful, that their muscles really ached. And they thought it was because they had worked out previous, like whatever. And they were like, what was the workout that we did? Because, man, my back was, my lower back or my muscles, wherever, were really aching. And then they were like, yeah, we really didn't work out that day. Or, whenever they thought they thought about it.
Right.
And that's one of the things they mentioned, that their muscles were aching prior to them getting symptoms. And I was thinking, hey, that, you had complained about it, that was the first time that somebody had hurt you giving you a massage like that. And I thought that was kind of a funny thing.
Now that you mention it, that makes a lot of sense. And actually going back on this thing, the Santa Paula trip was, I want to say around 12 and a half hours or maybe 13 hours or something. It's not quite as far as Korea, but it's close. And I actually got, assigned the trip. So I kind of ran out there, but on the way down, we do a break. So we have like a little, apartment like looking area. It's more like an RV, bed, but, I crawled up there and there's a temperature sensor up there. And most of the time the guys keep it really cold because you sleep better when it's cold, and everybody wants to go to sleep up there. And so it was like 64 degrees or something in this little cubby hole, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you could hang meat in this place." Which normally I sleep with it at the same. I crawl up there with that temperature all the time. So I was telling my wife when I got out of the hospital, they were talking to the doctor as well. She's like, "Well, we need to go back and try to find out when you're showing symptoms." I had the chills. Because it was cold. But I attributed that not to COVID.
Oh,
I didn't know I had been exposed yet. I attributed it to the fact that these guys had turned this temperature down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this airplane is freezing. But then I never could get warm, right? And so I turned up the temperature to like 72 degrees, which now you're in an oven because the space is so small that 72 degrees in this little bunker space, it's like roasting. You like cook you could cook your dinner in there. And I finally, got rid of the chills, but I felt bad because when the next guys came in there, I was just like, oh, sorry, I turned that oven up. They're like, oh my gosh, there's like heat wave coming out of here. So I didn't think about it until after, then I had the massage when I was down there. When I came back, I was just like, it dawned on me that I had symptoms when they, finally came out. They had called me actually and said, oh yeah, you got exposed coming back from Korea, which would have been less than 7 days. So it would have been, about 5 days when I started showing symptoms. But I only got the chills and the body aches, and then the fact that I was really tired. But that had more to do when I got back because of the way COVID was affecting your lungs. But once again, the pulse oximeter I think is $18 on Amazon. I think if you don't have one, you should get one because my dad told me that there were 2 incidences in he had 2 friends and both of them were our age and, had the same symptoms kind of thing. Very, very mild, got tired, went to bed, never woke up the next morning. So hypoxia is real weird. If you're flying RC airplanes, you really don't have to deal with that unless you're up in, Pikes Peak or somewhere. But if you've ever climbed a mountain, they talk about altitude sickness and all that stuff. Well, that's truly, as a pilot, as a professional pilot, we actually learn. As a matter of fact, Jay and I go far enough back that we were in the altitude chamber together, and so we both understand what our hypoxic symptoms are. And mine are tunnel vision. I get tunnel vision really bad. It's like I'm looking through a soda straw, and so the room gets dark and everything kind of closes in and makes like this little circle around it. You're just looking through it. And I don't know if you remember yours or not because I've used mine more, but. Once your body kind of manifests that, it's with you for the rest of your life. It doesn't really change. And that was one of the things that, people don't talk about oxygen deprivation or not having oxygen available to it. And your brain will shut your whole body down to stay alive. And so your extremities and all that stuff. Matter of fact, that was one of the things in the hospital. They kept coming in and touching my ankles to see if it would react, if I would actually, because if you grabbed your skin and, let go of it, kind of like one of those things, it'll turn white and then, go back to the color. And they would come in and test my ankle, that way down at my ankles, to see if I was getting oxygen to my extremities. And, but that's what'll happen. If you become hypoxic, your brain steals all the oxygen and the rest of your faculties will just basically stop working. And when I was laying there in bed, doctor was kind of like, yeah, it could have been 10 minutes. It could have been 10 hours. You were a happy hypoxic. You weren't any hypoxic. Yeah, well, I mean, I was, because I told
no, I know.
I didn't feel bad, right? I mean, I was like, I'm not coughing or runny nose, or I didn't have a fever or any of that stuff. I mean, I was cold, but hot shower took care of that, and get under the covers. But it's one of those things. Had I not had the pulse oximeter, my wife probably would have just said, he's tired, I'll just let him sleep, because I very rarely get sick. And if I do, I usually just sleep through it, and then I take some NyQuil. And she probably thought that's what I did, is just took some NyQuil and went to bed. But it could have been one of those where she laid down next to me at 9:30 or 6:30 at night, and then I just didn't wake up the next morning, because your heart rate keeps elevating because it's trying to pump oxygen, and eventually it gets high enough that it just says, okay, well, enough is enough, and you basically go into cardiac arrest. But it's not like a double bypass type thing where it's being blocked. It's just not getting any oxygen from your lungs.
Right.
So I lucked out, like I said, $18, buy one. If you don't have one, it's worth it. Get one for your family. And I tell everybody, everybody I see, I'm like, hey, this is not something you would normally know if you were not in my industry, or at least understood, like a climber, somebody. The reason I bought it is because one of the pilots I work with way back in February of last year got it right at the very beginning. And they were going to put him on a ventilator, and he had a pulse oximeter. He had climbed like K2 or Mount Everest or whatever. He's a big climber, and he understood hypoxia as well, mainly because we're pilots, but because he had experienced. And he checked and said, look, my O2 levels are too low. It has nothing to do with a ventilator. Ventilator just helps you breathe, right? I need oxygen. And he fought with the doctor. As a matter of fact, his wife sent him she had to mail it to him, but she sent him a little pulse oximeter so he would, show the doctor, and he would have it on. And finally they listened to him, and he actually recovered too. It was a long recovery though, because they fought about it for a couple of days.
Wow.
The longer you wait, the more damage can be done to your lungs, because your lungs will start, just closing down. They look, those little grapey looking things that you see on the internet. They'll look like raisins. Then they don't work, and getting that back is a long road. So.
Well, once again, unfortunately, you went out with a bang. I mean, well, you didn't go out with a bang, but you
went out with a whimper.
But with a whimper. But timing's everything, because now there's a vaccine, several vaccines.
Yeah, several.
You missed it by so much, but
I did, honestly.
Luckily,
I can get the vaccine, but I have to wait 3 months, because it's more of a booster for me, since I already had it. I got
I'm not. We're not worried about you now, bud.
No, I know.
Hey.
Well, I mean, I'm not out of the woods yet. I'm still in OT, but hopefully, only another week.
Come on.
So I am actually doing physical activities and trying to build up, and I have to do these deep breathing exercises, and I have to use I keep calling it a spegometer, but it's a spiral. I don't know what it's called.
You've done flying, right? You've done RC flying, right?
I did. I actually I lucked out this last Tuesday. Finally, I was able to sneak out of the house and got over to the park and showed up. And the guys were like, hey, it's good to see you.
Now stand over there.
Yeah. Well, that was funny, because everybody was wearing a mask. They're standing 6 feet apart. And I walk up, and I literally, just for fun, I stuck my hand out, and the guy looked at me, and I go, I can't give it and I can't receive it, so here you go. And he just shook his head. I was like, I'm just kidding. But, they were all interested. 2 of them didn't even know I was in the hospital. And, or maybe more. There was a couple of them, but they heard the story. They were just like, oh my gosh, we had no idea. And I told them, all these guys standing there, and they're like, well, it's good to see you. And I said, actually, honestly, I am much happier to see you than you are to see me. I mean, just, it was that close, you know. I mean, I look back now, and it's been, you know, since I think I was tested on December 4th, 2021, and I got out of the hospital Christmas Eve. So I've been out, you know, a couple of weeks, and I'm still, you know, working with the COVID doctor to kind of get stronger and better. But they did have a good time. We talked about it. You know, I think every one of them went out and bought the pulse oximeter off of Amazon before I even got home. And, you know, I'm sending them a link, and they're like, too late, already bought it. You know, because they're all, you know, a little older than I am, but they're all worried. And then when I was there, Charlie basically said, "Have you flown?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Well, how about you come fly this airplane?" And so he has a little balsa wood profile airplane that he had with him, and he got it airborne and then handed me the control. So everybody's like, "Is this the first time you've flown since you've been in the hospital?" And I go, "Hence the reason I'm 4 or 5, 6 mistakes high." Because I like somebody else's airplane. I don't want to, you know, smash a balsa wood airplane. If it was a foamy, I would have flown it down. But, you know, he hands me a balsa wood airplane. So, yeah, I flew it way up high. But it all kind of came back. I wasn't as crisp, you know, as I have been or what I was before I went in the hospital. But it's all kind of still there. It's muscle memory. So I did a couple snap rolls and some inverted flight and a couple of rollers and a couple of hammerheads and tail slide. They were all impressed with the tail slide because, you know, it's a profile, so getting it to actually slide backwards is a little bit tougher to do, but I was able to do it. So, and it was a really light wind. And anyway, about a minute left on his timer, I handed it back to him because I was like, it's not my airplane. I don't want to put it in the sprinkler head and you have to buy a profile. So, but, you know, the good news and bad news is, you know, I had to get a storage unit because we moved out of our house, and luckily I kind of organized all that stuff. So most of my airplanes are either in the trailer or in the storage unit. And I think now that I'm stronger and can get over there, I'll dig a couple of foamies out so I can go fly. But I think tomorrow I may mosey out to the field because I'm to the point now where I can get off of oxygen, you know, if I'm out a little bit, you know, I can stay off of it for a little bit of time. But I have a bottle that I travel with in the car, and then I have this concentrator that's here at the house that, you know, I stay on.
So that McCallum will just keep you going, huh?
So the what is?
The McCallum. It'll just keep you going, that bottle of McCallum you have in the car?
Yeah.
Oh, you meant oxygen. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Yeah. Exactly. So, no, it's actually a big tank. It's actually bigger than what I've seen before. It looks like a scuba tank, just a real narrow scuba tank. But
that's one of those things that says, you know, you'd rather have a bottle in front of me than in front of a lobotomy.
That's right.
But I'm bumped.
Exactly. I'm here all night, folks. So.
Hey, so this is one of the first Christmases that we've had that we you know, I got a gift to you way before, you know, Christmas. Two, I think it's the first gift that you didn't even open on Christmas. Normally it's like opened at, like, you know, Thanksgiving. The next day after Thanksgiving, it gets open.
Some of them are, yeah.
The gifts get around that area, and then it's like, hey, are you going to save it till Christmas? Huh? Oh no, man! I opened it up and put the thing together like 2 days after I got it. You know, type of
well,
thing.
It's much better to fly on Christmas and say, "Here you go," right? I mean, you got this Christmas gift.
Yeah, I guess. But this Christmas, you haven't even touched my gift.
No, it came in, and then the whole house got packed up, and it actually got put. You know, in the motorhome, and I got home Christmas Eve, and of course we weren't we hadn't talked yet, and trust me, my wife was more interested in having me home. I think she cried for 2 days just having me there, and when I finally made it, and I really wasn't in a position. I was still pretty weak when I came out of the hospital, which was a weird deal in itself.
I'm saying I'm cutting you some slack, dude, but yeah. Now it's like, you know, we're here middle of January, you know.
I know, it's mid-January.
And I got, you know, and I thought, oh, hey, he's living in the mobile home now, and that way he can get right outside his thing. He'd stay inside if it's cold, and he could fly, you know, looking out the front window.
True, yeah.
You know, that was the whole idea behind it.
Yeah, I just been busy enough with, you know, just recovery and some of the house stuff that, the good news is I've been able to go to the new house pretty much every day, you know, in the mornings. Arlie would drive me, you know.
Pshaw, recovery.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not doing anything but sitting in the truck, and I was in my pajamas for most of it. I mean, guys got out and they're like, wow, you're really casual today. because I'm wearing like sweatpants and a t-shirt, and
go to Walmart.
this is
Fit
one
right
of the
in.
first days I actually put a shirt on for the podcast. Normally I just kind of lounge around in what do they call it? The active wear.
There you go.
Wear on in my flip flops, but so yeah, now I feel much better today. It was a long week when I got home. Even though I was home for Christmas, it was so hard to get up and walk around, and I'd walk from one end to the other and just be exhausted. I'd have to sit for an hour just to recover. But my recovery today is much quicker. I'm not quite where a normal recovery would be. Most people's oxygen levels are like 95 to 97. Then when you jump up off your chair and you run to the front door or run to the mailbox or whatever, your levels will drop to like 90. And then when you sit back down and take a couple of deep breaths, they'll recover back up to 97. And I'm not quite there yet. So I'm still in the mid 90s to low 90s, and then if I exert myself, I'll drop to the high 80s.
Well, I guess the big story then is, do you think you're going to be ready for the festival?
Yes, I will be actually.
Okay.
The doctors basically told me that recovery is somewhere between 2 weeks on the fastest side and 6 weeks on the longest side. Some people take longer than 6 weeks, but the average, I guess, and where I'm at, they're saying that it may just, I should be raring to go and off oxygen and on my own, recover and everything in a 6 week time frame. So
Okay.
we're looking about 2 more weeks, and the electric festival is, I think, 3 or 4 weeks out. So actually, yeah, it's almost a month away. So as of today, the day we're doing a podcast, but yeah, I'm excited about that. I will be ready, and I will attend regardless of whether I'm flying or not. It's a different story, but I do expect to be there, and I told Shannon, I don't even know if Shannon knew I was in the hospital, but he had emailed me and I didn't respond, but I texted him. I was like, yeah, we'll be there, so I'm planning on being there, and hopefully you guys can make arrangements to be here too. And I know this kind of screwed everything up. We normally have this stuff planned way in advance and we're raring to go, but you guys may have to dig a couple airplanes out of the storage unit, but it should be good.
They're all at the front of the storage unit.
I know, or they're in the trailer, one of the two. So,
right.
Have a trailer, but yeah, it's I'm getting more excited about it, and I know that usually when we attend, we spend a lot more time doing podcasts and stuff than we actually do flying. But I'm pretty excited about it. Whether I get to fly or not, it's a different story. But either way, I'm happy to see everybody. Trust me, I'll be super excited to be there. But I'm looking forward to it. So it's going to be good to see everybody. And although it'll be a little different, they're still doing the kind of COVID. Everybody's going to be wearing a mask and trying to stay 6 feet apart, that kind of thing. So
I think we're handing out Parkflyer podcast poles, 6 foot poles for everybody with our logo on it, so they can poke each other.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, I was thinking about the other day that unfortunately we've been doing this YouTube channel. I don't know how we're going to do a video link or whatever. I mean, we'll have to figure that out. I do have some GoPro cameras.
Jay, I think I'm gonna want to make you a hula hoop, 6 foot hula hoop that you have to wear.
Just like
no, you won't be swinging it. It'll be just with stiff rods, 6 feet out, so that people don't touch you.
Like a little hoop skirt.
Yeah, hoop skirt. Exactly.
Closer than this.
No, Jay didn't get fat. That is his COVID hoop.
COVID hoop.
He's got to wear.
There you go.
That's funny. That is pretty interesting.
Well, Mike, I got to tell you though, we felt so bad about everything that happened to you.
Yeah.
And I was so devastated, after I left your place and came back, that Mike came down and he consoled me.
What?
And
that's
yes,
awesome.
And in order to get over my grief, because I could barely speak about the whole thought of you being on.
He was a blubbering mass.
Was he?
Yes, blubbering.
I'm
a
sure
blubbering mass.
That
or was it blubbery? I can't remember.
Something like that.
He was a blubbery mass. That's a good.
That the way that for me to grieve was to have Mike come down and for us to have fun for a whole week or two.
Well, and I heard it was a fun time. So.
Hell yeah.
Hey, Mike's finally off his deathbed. Let's get together. Yeah. Well, it was
that worked out pretty good.
I really wanted to fly down because it sounded like a fun time, and at that point I was able to phone and text, and every time I tried to get in touch with you guys, you're out at the field.
So one of the first things that happened when I came down was he said, "All right, where's your helicopter?" I was like, "Well, it's broken." He goes, "Well,
for your birthday. I got
right?
you for your birthday."
Yeah. He's like, "But how many times have you flown it? Twice?
Well,
you broke it already?"
I don't feel so
It's
bad
like,
now.
yeah, I broke it. It doesn't work. The tail boom's broken. He goes, the boom's broken. Let me see it. So I brought it with me, and we took it out, and he's like, the boom's not broken. I said, well, that thingy at the back, it's broken. It won't land. You're going to crash every time you land or get near the ground. So
wait. The boom is the long tube that
right.
It wasn't
exactly.
That.
It
was the little plastic piece that sits vertical.
It's a little plastic piece in the back that when you land hard,
stabilizer
it makes, exactly.
Right. It keeps the tail rotor off the
ground.
Oh
yeah. And so we were like, well, what's a guy to do? I mean, you got a broken plastic part. You got 3D printers.
Yeah, I would have said.
What's a guy to do? 3D and so I think we probably spent more time than I thought putting together, like 10 or 15 minutes, putting together a design for this thing.
Stabilizer?
I mean, truly, it just took Jay no time at all. He's like, well, how big is that? It's like, I don't know. He put the measuring tool on it. And he knocked out something really quick.
Yeah. But once again, I didn't exactly do it. You did.
Well, that's true. You were measuring and giving me numbers, and then we kind of both did it together. But really, it went super fast.
Yeah, sure.
Faster than I ever met. And then what the fun part for me was, like, I would speculate about sizes and stuff. That's 5. That's a 2. He's like, you don't know that. It's like, yeah, it is. And then he would go and measure, and he goes, all right, it's a 2.
That's funny.
Give it a 2.1. We want to make it a little bigger. It's like, okay, fine. And so we knocked that thing out probably in about an hour, really.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And made it, I mean, damn if it didn't fit exactly on there. I mean, of course it would because you measured everything. But it was just surprising to me to be able to just sort of knock that thing out in such a way. And, of course, we had a ton of fun with that helicopter after that, flying around because it flies for a good 10 minutes on a battery.
Yeah, sure.
And, it was just a ton of fun just flying that thing around. So it's a pretty good helicopter. But, it was stuff like that. And I think, Jay, is that when we made the shelf brackets too?
Did we do the shelf?
No,
that's when you came down for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But
still, we've done a couple of these little projects. They're just stupid projects. I mean, in this case of the helicopter was good, but I had some plastic shelf brackets I needed for my California closet shelves that broke.
Sure.
And Jay's like, well, let's measure it out, and we just knocked something out. I mean, like it was nothing. We did some battery connectors and a couple
that's right. Yeah, you
random.
I
mean,
you needed. They weren't battery connectors. They were. Oh, it was for your. It was for your pick motor.
Yeah. They're XT60
was
battery
it
connectors.
Was it not holders,
caps,
but was it
caps?
Like latches?
No. It's like if you put the two connectors together, it held them that way.
Oh, gotcha.
Right, it was like a latch. Right, and it was
when I was flying, it would come loose.
Yeah, it was a safety latch.
Yeah, so that the battery wouldn't come loose. And actually, once it was started, I really didn't need the battery anyway, but it was a pain in the ass because if I wanted to restart the motor and I still had it on my back, I had to get somebody to plug them back in or whatever.
Oh, that's on your paramotor, you said?
Yeah, my paramotor.
Gotcha.
And so we've done a couple things. And so the only reason why I said all that is because, well, this is what you can see if you're on YouTube. You get to see what I got for my Christmas.
Look at that.
This was some tools to help with, the cleaning up of stuff, and then the random tool case, with the scraper and some other stuff in it, and then a whole roll of red because Jay just couldn't see me making pink stuff anymore. It put him beside himself.
Coming from a man who makes everything in lime fluorescent green, he couldn't see it.
Fabulous. I like fabulous colors.
I have a pink camera holder that I made, and all the guys are like, "Dude, is that pink?" It's like, yeah,
but you're not going to lose that thing. That's
I told Jay that. I said, Jay, no one's going to ever steal that.
And steal it. That's really nice. That's really nice.
They'll see it laying around. They'll be like, "That's Mike's. I'm not touching it."
That's Mike's.
But
without a doubt.
I'm only saying all that stuff because, as much as I know, and we've been doing this for a while now, that having a 3D printer is, kind of really hobbyish, I guess. It's become more of a functional element in at least Jay and my RC, and then some of my personal stuff, just the things that we're making. So, right. I don't know if I would recommend the printer I have because I think it's too small, but the one that Doug bought, what was that, the Creality?
Yeah, the Ender 3
the Creality one's
version
pretty
2.
Reasonable. I think it's a 110 by 110 or one.
No,
it's bigger
it's
than that.
235 by 235.
Thank you.
Millimeters.
Yeah, mine's the 110 by 110,
yes.
which is too small. And so I think that's a reasonable size for the kinds of things that we would do. I've made a battery holder. I've made, some adapters for rods so the foam doesn't bend anymore. Because I got rods that go through my plane and that basically the foam just gets reamed out after a while.
Sure.
And so I put replacement thing. So just little kind of things. And
didn't we also make parts for your plane, the nose? I made something.
Yeah. For your Radjet.
Yeah, I did that for the Radjet, but I also did it for one of your planes that was down here. And
mine?
Yeah. What plane was it?
No, not for the nose.
Not for the nose. It was. Was it? No, it was the Panther. The Panther jet.
Oh yeah, you told me you made something. It was like a skid or something, right?
Yeah, well, we put that. We made a skid. We put that on, and then it was also the nose of it wasn't reinforced, and so when you put the lid in, it would pop out because the lid.
Oh, right. You put the lid holder,
right.
Make a better lid holder. That's right. You did.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I knew the foam on the lid itself.
Yeah, had just gotten wallowed out.
Got ripped off because I keep nosing it into the ground.
Sure.
That's what happens. The battery tries to come through. This is the things that happen.
Well, I will tell you, Mike, that the couple of times that I've been down to Jay's this last year, 3D things have wandered their way into my bag for when I came home. So
yeah,
I have a whole little baggie full of like the end caps for the battery.
Yeah.
And bunch because I use some really big 6 cell, 5,000 milliamp 6 cells, and so it's a little cap that goes on the end of it. So yeah, there's always something. I think Jay has pretty much got his money's worth on that machine.
He sure has. He sure has.
That's good.
Yeah. So I it even though this is a RC model hobby, when I look at the kinds of things that you do with your airplanes in terms of the engineering things that you might do if you're putting together a foamy for the first time, or the kind of measuring it if you're doing stick building or building something from scratch or whatever, this is on that same level. And what's cool is that it fits in with it. So it's really kind of an extension of the hobby.
Right.
And of course you can use it outside of the hobby, but I just feel like even with the kind of gear that's out there today,
right,
you can do it without too much knowledge. We'll have to have Doug on to talk about that, but you can do. I mean, he's an engineer though, so he would know how to do this stuff. But my point is, I feel like quote unquote regular people can use this stuff now. Right. When Jay first started doing it was a little bit deeper, but now they've had so many iterations of so many different types of units that it works nicer, and you can get expected output a lot simpler than you used to be able to before.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
I mean, the software's gotten better every year, and all kinds of improvements to the firmware, to the units, all this different stuff. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there because I even though I walk away sometimes from Jay's house, when I'm not hanging out with Jay, I don't really think about that stuff. But we sit down for a couple hours and we're just knocking out stuff left and right. It's like, what about this? What about, what, Jay? I could make one of those. And he goes, yeah, why aren't you? What's happening? And so really, the good news is that when I'm around Jay, he's got this inspiration that comes from in the form of the idea man that we have here.
Absolutely.
Jay's the idea man. And
make it happen.
And so we it's just good stuff.
Awesome. Well,
and we got in a lot of good flying too, so that was a lot of fun.
We did, and of course I crashed stuff.
Yeah, but then it gets
just so Jay can fix it.
There you go. Jay's good at that. Jay's a fix it man.
Oh my goodness!
I'll never.
Oh, I mean,
forget
our
Arizona Electric Festival where they crashed the jet and Jay had got the Gorilla Glue. I think he glued himself more than he glued the jet, but yeah, he's fixed a couple of them out there. So it's funny because guys are like, "Yeah, I'm done," you know. And Jay's like, "What are you talking about?" You know, and the next
give me 10 minutes, I'll be right back. Yeah.
So
yeah,
a couple of straws and pencils and a couple of chopsticks and some Gorilla Glue. We're good as new.
It just needs to fly. It doesn't need to look pretty. I mean, that's really the.
As long as it'll fly, it's good to go.
Yeah.
But that stems all the way back when we had to order stuff from China back. What was it? It wasn't Hobby King. It was something else.
It wasn't called Hobby King. It was Hobby King, but their name was Hobby something.
Hobby City. Hobby City, when they first started out, and Jay and I were way back there, doing the whole thing. We would order parts from China, and it would take 6 or 8 weeks to get here. So if you wanted to fly, you better, be able to fix your plane and continue flying because your part wasn't going to get here for weeks. So, we're building foam airplanes, and people are like,
I think that's one of the best things about foam building. Really is, the wing broke. Yeah, so what?
Yep.
No big deal. Just cut another one.
We learned.
Cut another one. Yeah. See? And then, glue, hot glue. Ding. Okay.
Well, I learned early not to use hot glue. My whole airplane.
Well, I mean, this is Alaska, right? So it's all good.
So here's my
Jay
latest.
is showing his Radjet with the replaced nose cone,
which looks really good. I like.
Mike and I were flying this thing out when he was here, and
I didn't crash it.
You crashed it?
I did not crash it.
No, it was me.
I'm the guy who crashes planes, but I didn't crash it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, this time he didn't crash it. So basically, I was doing a landing, and I, kind of a rough landing. It was one of those. Actually, it was a good landing, but it skipped and just caught the nose and crack.
Yeah, and admittedly, the nose had been dinked a few times before.
A few times. So this time I decided to fix it right. So I just kind of cut it.
Yep.
I cut the nose off.
That looks good.
With my little saw. Then I glued 2 sections of the pink foam together.
Yeah, it's called a foamular is what that's called.
Yeah, and then I just kind of drew out a basic shape on it with a Sharpie, and then just started whittling and sanding, and finally got it to this shape. Now, the only thing what I did end up doing to kind of finish this off was I got my 3D printer because I was like, yeah, you know what, this foam's going to get jacked up, and maybe I should put something on it to kind of protect it.
Sure.
And so I printed out a little nose cone for it that slips over it, and I haven't gotten around to gluing it on, but it all turned out pretty nice.
He's not showing to you now because the dog is currently eating it.
Probably she is.
So, quick question: do you think the plastic and that extra foam is going to change the CG on it or make it fly different?
No, not at all. I mean, because the foam doesn't.
Well, it may change the CG on it, but in his case, the further forward he has CG in this particular plane, the better off it is because you can, if I remember right. The struggle we had was moving the battery forward enough.
Oh, and it's a pusher too, so the nose wants to kind of come up on it as well.
Yeah, so it's not a problem.
So we found that'll be in this case it'll probably be okay. Yeah. I mean it's only like 10 grams maybe max what he just added.
Right. Well, I know you sent me a picture of that nose cone, and I was trying to figure out what it was initially, and I'm like, what? Oh, and then it made sense. But that's really kind of cool. That little, it's like a little cap, It just
it's thin. It doesn't weigh that much because it only has like a wall or two on it.
Right.
And it's just to protect the foam, and go over and protect the foam so the foam doesn't get all dinged up.
It'll probably crack first time you hit it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you'll just print another one. I mean, that's the point of it.
If it doesn't bend the foam, then he's better off, right?
Yeah.
Exactly my point, right? You're just going to take the hit and then you just crack it, and make a new one. Back in business, whatever.
So I've been pretty happy, but
like I said, break the bank. I know it costs like 2 cents to print that out. So
it does, yeah,
something like that. Yeah, that's the bad part because once again, the part that I'm not telling you is it took me 2-3 iterations to kind of get it right.
So it cost you a nickel. Shame on you.
I was digging around on the couch.
5 of these out. Luckily, I found a dime in the couch, and I made.
That's it. I dug it out of the car seat and was able to. Woohoo! We're printing tonight, fellas.
That's right. What are we printing tonight? We're rich.
we can mess up a whole bunch of times.
I'm going to print out 100 things with. Well, Well, that's it's funny you guys were mentioning that because just yesterday I was trying to find the end of the internet, and of course, went down one of those holes, and you know how that is. And it, for some reason, I guess Jay and I were talking about something. He was telling me a story about a 3D printer, but for some reason, on whatever page I was on, it decided, Google and or whoever's listening, decided to put some 3D stuff on it. So I was looking at all these little 3D things, and what came up? The largest 3D printer in the world was just used by the University of Maine to build an actual boat.
I've seen that video.
They 3D printed the boat.
That actually makes sense to me.
But they printed it, and then they lifted it up, stuck it in the water, put like 6 people on it, turned on the wave machine, and the boat did fine. So it was amazing. I was trying to figure out.
There's no reason for it not to.
No, they used a special type of crosshatch, where they printed it one way and then printed it the other way, and it kind of sealed it all.
That gives it some security that it needs and whatever.
But it was kind of cool. So I don't know. It just reminded me that things are. I think we mentioned before, but Jay and I were looking at. He had showed me this printer. I was looking at some of the most expensive 3D printers in the world, and I found one that was like well into the millions. And I was like, what do you do with a 3D printer that's well in the millions? And I know for a fact I've mentioned it on another podcast, but they printed out turbochargers.
Exactly.
Out of metal.
I mean, that's awesome.
To be able to do that, and then nowadays be able to do what you guys do with the 3D printers is just amazing.
Well, the big thing here in Austin,
the fact that Jay and I could do it.
Oh
yeah, especially right.
Right. I mean, that's really the big deal. Is that we're just two knuckleheads going at it.
Exactly. Well, one of the cool things here in Austin, there's a new company that just opened up, and they're making homes with a 3D printer. They'll print you a home in 24 hours.
That's with the concrete, though, right?
Yeah, it's with concrete.
It's plastic blocks instead of concrete.
Right.
So basically, they're charging you for a Lego home.
No. It's with concrete, Mike.
No, so they use the plastic blocks for the former, Jay, right? And then they squirt it in there and they pull the plastic off and they do it again.
There's a couple of different ways they do it. The one place here, it's kind of like I don't know if you've ever seen a 3D printer where they use it to like put icing on cakes.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they're using so it just kind of comes out it oozes out.
Oh,
kind of like a tube of toothpaste, and it comes oozing out, and they just kind of continually they make this organic shape of a house, and it kind of looks like an igloo by the time they get done with it.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so it kind of looks like one of those hippy dippy homes,
Hippity dippity. Well, I think you should. We're building some homes, so I need some stuff for the new house. So print out a couple of Lego blocks, and then let me put them together and see how that works. We'll build a little house behind.
I don't know about that, but.
I think it'd be cool. Imagine if they printed a boat out with it. Imagine printing a big, cinder block sized Lego, and then just.
Once again, I think they, the nature of this stuff, like I said, the 3D metal printing and using lasers and sintering, using what they don't call it sintering, and they call it something. They blast. It's using powder, and they fire the laser into the powder, and they're able to fuse the metal together. Then they put it in the oven. They bake it, and that stuff.
It's like powder coating.
Yeah, that's what.
Kind of like powder coating, but they're able
powder coating, but
but it's in reverse where they're basically putting the powder together to make the shape and fusing it together. But it's pretty cool. I mean, just like you said, they're able to build these really high precision, really organic shapes that using traditional methods of getting pipes and welding them together, is a bit of a hassle, and now they can make the organic shapes. They might still have to weld it together, but they can design it so that the welding is a lot easier, and they can put the thing together a lot quicker.
Yeah, early in my career in computers and stuff, I worked for Tektronix, and they had a big 3D printer. Wasn't the extrusion type? It was the liquid type where they use a laser to harden it, and it was cool as hell to see this thing just rise out of the liquid and become the shell of a printer. I mean, it was friggin' incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And the guy's like, I was like, did you just make that? He goes, yeah, a couple hours. I was like, damn. He goes, yeah, I got to make this change right here, though. They don't like the way this thing looks. I got to change it. It's like, okay.
So he's got to do it.
But he makes his change, and a couple hours later, they get to see it. So now we're not talking about weeks and years or whatever of development and molding and all that other crap.
Well, think about cars, how they used to design cars. They'd get a big block of clay, and a guy'd come out there.
Yeah.
They get out their little calipers and they'd be like making the hood or making whatever.
Right.
They don't do that. I mean, I guess they'd still
they do
but,
some
I mean,
of that, but yeah.
But I mean,
it's crazy.
All CAD.
That's great.
It's crazy.
Well,
hey,
I'll tell you
what world we live in, man.
Changing. Hopefully this 2021 will be, filled with us flying and having a good time and building new parts and new planes. And I mean,
well, we got a bunch of new planes on the horizon for projects, and I got a few things there, that we still haven't finished.
That's true.
From the 3D printed plane there.
I'm going to make a 3D printed COVID cage.
COVID cage?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically a box with an empty hole in the middle. It's, boxed in.
All right, COVID, get in there. Get in there.
That's right.
Well, I am happy to be here. Glad to be alive. That's
glad to have you, Mike.
I miss you guys, and it was a touch and go there, but I'm glad that I'm still here, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at the Electric Festival and having a good time. So
you're going to share the oxygen, right?
Hopefully I'll be off, but if it's still around, I'll share it. Yeah, you can all.
Okay.
I'll bring the blueberry flavoring. Because I like
blueberry.
I can't
remember if we were talking on the podcast about that, but yeah, you can just put it in the tube, and then we can all be like smelling blueberries all day.
That's it. Well, the oxygen bars in New York is a big thing.
That's true.
And they pay,
is that right?
They pay a lot of money for it, for 5 or 10 minutes of sniffing scented oxygen.
Expensive. It's like
I never thought about that.
Something for 15 minutes or something. It's like $1 a minute.
Yeah.
You never seen an O2 bar?
I've never been to an O2 bar.
Well,
I'm not making it up. That's a real thing.
It is a real thing.
Oh no, I believe you.
Okay,
I believe you. I've never been to it.
Yeah, no. It was a big trend for a while, but I mean, before we go, because our time's up, but I will tell you that when Jay and I went to when we went to the altitude chamber in college, we had to pre-breathe oxygen for like 30 minutes because they're going to take us up to like 25,000 and dump us out, like we ejected. And it was funny because after about 35 minutes on oxygen, we all felt like Superman.
Yep.
We were making plans that night to just tear up the place. I mean, we were in Little Rock, I think, or somewhere at the Air Force Base.
Yep. We're in Little.
There's probably 12 of us, and because I think there were 6 of us on either side, and Jay was literally right across. He was my partner, and we were just making these plans because we all just felt like, oh my gosh, we're just woohoo, let's go here. We're gonna paint the town, and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Man, they ran us through about an hour and a half of oxygen, going up, coming down, doing these tests, all that stuff you see on the videos, for the test pilot guys. And we had to do all that stuff. And then they're like, okay, we'll do one last, rapid depressurization. Boof! We all were fogged in. We're all laughing, yucking it up. Then we had to wait for 30 minutes to do the decompression thing, so we couldn't leave. So we're still in there. After 30 minutes of being off O2, we all wanted to go back to the hotel and go to sleep.
That's what ended up happening. We didn't paint anything.
Nobody went anywhere.
Our eyelids.
we were so drained, We just were like, oh. So the point is that those O2 bars, they get you all jacked up really quickly, but later on you're going to pay for it because.
Isn't that what they do in Vegas? Supposedly pumping extra OT in Vegas?
Yeah, they sure do. They don't have any clocks on the walls or no windows. So, crazy.
Love it.
I know, right?
So I'm not as awesome at poker as I thought I was. Is that what you're
That's
saying?
right.
Yeah.
That's it.
My bank account says that too, so I guess
That's
I
right.
just believe
Not
that.
Rain Man, huh? Too bad. Well, I'll tell you what, our time is up. I want to thank everybody out there who supported, my time in the hospital. And if you didn't know before, you know now, and I appreciate you thinking about us. But we apologize for, the break in the podcast. I know we were, delinquent there, but we were missing someone. So, and Jay was here and Mike was out, and it didn't work. But we're back. Hopefully, going to have a smash up 2021, and looking forward to seeing everybody at the AZ Electric Fest.
I'm excited.
I am too.
Me too.
Yeah, I am too. So, well, we give a shout out to our sponsors, and from Arizona, I'm Michael.
And from the hills of Texas, I'm Jay.
And this is AK Mike in Texas.
All right. Hopefully, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Well, let's fly.
Happy New Year.
You have been listening to the Parkflyer podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, And feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.
Well, let's see. This ought to be an easy one for Jay. Because you're gonna have to use the Squadcast audio. Mine quit after 10 minutes.